नयनो निवासी नीलाद्रोनिहि चरणोऽनन्त शिरसि निवासी नीलाद्रोनिहि चरणोऽनन्त शिरसि रसानन्दि राधा सर सब पूरा लिंगन सुखो रसानन्दि राधा सर सब पूरा लिंगन सुखो जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतूमे जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतूमे नवयाचे राज्यं न च कनकमाणिक्य विभवम् नवयाचे राज्यं न च कनकमाणिक्य विभवम् न याचेऽहं रम्यां सकल जनकाम्यां वरवधूं न याचेऽहं रम्यां सकल जनकाम्यां वरवधूं सदा काले काले भ्रमति नागीत चरितो सदा काले काले भ्रमति नागीत चरितो जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतु मे जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतु मे हरत्वं संसारं द्रुत तरं सारं सुरपते हरत्वं संसारं द्रुत तरं सारं
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Madhavananda Prabhuji, for joining us.
Hare Krishna.
We're so fortunate. We're blessed. So I will do a small intro and then we can continue. You can take us to the road of Lord Jagannath. So we welcome all the Vaishnamas for connecting today. If you can, if you may, if you want to, please keep your videos on so we can all have darshan of each other. So this is a series our dear Jagannath Prabhu and family, they conceived, they thought through very well Sravanam series on the pastimes of Lord Jagannath, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All credit goes to His Grace, Jagannath Prabhu, Mataji and Suruvi Devi, and their love and affection for Madhavananda Prabhu also, that attracted Madhavananda Prabhuji to come and bless us. His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu, so many words are needed, millions of mouths are needed to glorify his contributions to our Gaudiya society, Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON. His Divine Grace, Shripad, His Holiness Lord Govind Swami Maharaj had many very exalted disciples, sannyasi disciples, Grihastha disciples, and His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu is among among one of those very close associates of Srila Gaur Swami Maharaj. For last 40 years, he's been serving His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada and its Gurudev. And I was amazed that out of those 40 years, 30 years are in Bhubaneswar. It's like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left Navadvip and took resides in the Puri Dham. Similarly, Madhavananda Prabhuji also left America, Los Angeles, and other places where he could be. But we all, as Indian bodies, we come to America, and Prabhuji left America and joined Bhubaneswar, Puri Dham to be in the lap of Jagannath and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. And especially Prabhuji's contributions on the order of his Gurudev, starting a publishing house, Gopal Geo Publishing, and then publishing His Holiness Gaur Swami Maharaj's teachings, books, his mood, his explanation of the separations of Mahaprabhu from Vrindavan, all encapsulated in those wonderful books. The Embarkment of Separation, Mathura Meets Vrindavan. These are beautiful, beautiful books. If you don't have copy, please get those copies. And then starting this wonderful magazine, Krishna Kathamrita. I've been waiting for all those years. Whenever the new magazine comes, I will jump on it. Whenever I go to New Vrindavan, actually in Lohi Bazaar, I'll look for those magazines. Even if I had a copy, I'll take another copy so I can give to somebody. Beautifully published, beautifully compiled, beautiful pictures and simple explanations, deep but very profound. So we are grateful to Madhavananda Prabhuji for your contributions to our ISKCON Gaudiya Society. Thank you so much. Especially today, I also noticed 501 Krishnamrita Bindu was released on this Father's Day. Today is a Father's Day also. It's such a special occasion that we respect and honor our individual biological fathers who have given us the chance to come in this world and purify ourselves. And we also thank our Param Pita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Krishna, who has actually allowed us to serve them in some way. So without further ado, mic is yours, Madhavananda Prabhuji. Please take us in the Kunjas of Jagannath Puri Dham and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Thank you. We're blessed.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. You're embarrassing me, Devakinanda Prabhu. Sometimes I become a little confused, especially when I go back to America where I'm from, and I go to New Jersey or someplace and I start giving a class and they're all Indian body devotees, and I say, I'm not sure, am I a Deshi or a Bideshi? I'm kind of a Bideshi Deshi. I don't know. For those of you who don't know Hindi, am I a foreigner? Am I a native? I don't really know. Thank you for your kind words, Prabhuji. We're just here because we really have no other place left in the world to go. We're not useful like you or Hemanta Jagannath Prabhu or others who have some good qualities. It's nice to see my friend Dina Bandhu Prabhu here. No fair making any bad faces or anything, funny faces, Dina Bandhu. And Yashoda Dula Prabhu also. I miss the devotees here very much. So I got a very simple request from Hema Jagannath Prabhu. Very, very simple, easy thing to speak on. He said, you should speak on Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Lord Jagannath. So that's, I don't know, maybe 1,000 pages or more to choose from. So I contemplated that, and I have some thoughts I'd like to share with you from what I consider to be the most essential chapter of the Madhya Lila and the most essential points of that chapter. and some of the purport of that. But before we do that, you please tolerate me for a moment. I'd like to just recite some prayers. Gora Graganya Gana Gota Golodu Hadam Goranga Gudatama Gopyada Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachiya Dileka Kola Kahe Premananda Hemona Goranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangera Namare Jai Jana Goranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Pranare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya, Prema Bidana Padama Pumarta, Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya, Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste, Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste, Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste, Madhavirapi Gopala, Sri Kuryat Kripaya Jadi, Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Rishe Yustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatha Brajabala Bapahimam Nilachala Nivasaya Nityaya Paramatmane Balabhadra Subhadrabhyam Jagannataya Te Namaha Kadaha Chitkalindi Tatavipina Sangita Karavo Mudabiri Narivadana Kamalasvadamadupa Rama Shambhu Brahma Madapati Ganesha Chitapado Jagannatha Swami Noyana Patagami Bhavatume Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatume Vanchakopadarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So I want to thank everybody very much for taking part in this wonderful program, which is this Jagannath Sravanam Festival, which was organized by His Grace Hema Jagannath Prabhu and the devotees there in New Jersey, and also connection with the Bhakti Center. And thank you very much for giving me some opportunity to get out of Maya and remember Krishna and Jagannath a little bit. So before we began our prayers, I gave a little tease to the devotees. We're going to speak a little something about the Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'm a little nervous if we're going to be able to cover all the grounds I'm hoping to today. We have some very esoteric and very wonderful topics ahead of us. I was asked to speak on the Madhya Lila and on Gora Lila and Jagannath Lila from the Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Well, that's, as I mentioned, a very huge subject. I'm contemplating on it, and we could give different reasons for this. I'd rather not try to go into supporting it right now. It would take more time than we have. But from my conception, the essence of the Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita is chapter 13, which describes the Rath Yatra in Puri. And amongst all those verses, there's one which I find particularly significant, and especially the purport of Srila Prabhupada. I'd like to go ahead and sing this verse with you and read Srila Prabhupada's purport. Eimata Gora Shami Done Tela Latali Swarate Shamere Rake Gora Mahabole Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. So speaking about the Rath Yatra festival, and it says there, E Mata Gora Shami. In this way, it says Gora Shami. Gora Shami, Prabhupada translates as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Jagannath. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami refers to Lord Jagannath here as Sham. It's usually a name for Krishna. Donhe Tela Lateli. That the two of them, there was some Telateli, there was some competition, and how they were going to move, who was more strong. Swarati Shameri. That Lord Jagannath, Swarati, in his own chariot, he was keeping, in Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he was successful. Gora Mahabali, he was stronger, that he made Lord Jagannath wait in his own cart. Prabhupada writes in his purport, very, very significant purport. It's a little bit long. Please bear with us and listen carefully. It's a very beautiful purport. In his Anubhashya, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur describes the ecstasy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as follows. After giving up the company of the gopis in Vrindavan, Sri Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, engaged in his pastimes at Dwarka. When Krishna went to Kurukshetra with his brother and sister and others from Dwarka, he again met the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radhabhava Dhyuti Suvalita. That is, Krishna himself assuming the part of Srimati Radharani in order to understand Krishna. Lord Jagannath Dev is Krishna, and Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Srimati Radharani. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's leading Lord Jagannath toward the Gundicha temple corresponded to Srimati Radharani's leading Krishna toward Vrindavan. Sri Kshetra, Jagannath Puri, was taken as the kingdom of Dwarka, the place where Krishna enjoys supreme opulence. But he was being led by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Vrindavan, the simple village where all the inhabitants are filled with ecstatic love for Krishna. Sri Kshetra is a place of Aishvarja Leela, just as Vrindavan is a place of Madhurja Leela. And for those of you who may not understand those technical phrases, we're going to speak about this. This is some of our main point today. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's following at the rear of the Rath indicated that Lord Jagannath Krishna was forgetting the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Although Krishna neglected the inhabitants of Vrindavan, he could not forget them. Thus, in his opulent Rath Yatra, he was returning to Vrindavan. In the role of Srimati Radharani, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was examining whether the Lord still remembered the inhabitants of Vrindavan. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell behind the Rath Yatra cart, Jagannath Dev, Krishna himself, understood the mood, the mind of Srimati Radharani. Therefore, Jagannath sometimes fell behind the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to indicate to Srimati Radharani that he had not forgotten. Thus Lord Jagannath would stop the forward march of the Rath and wait at a standstill. In this way, Lord Jagannath agreed that without the ecstasy of Srimati Radharani, he could not feel satisfied. While Jagannath was thus waiting, Gaurasundar, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his ecstasy of Srimati Radharani, immediately came forward to Krishna. At such times, Lord Jagannath would proceed ahead very slowly. These competitive exchanges were all part of the love affair between Krishna and Srimati Radharani. In that competition between Lord Chaitanya's ecstasy for Jagannath and Jagannath's ecstasy for Srimati Radharani, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emerged successful. So I'd like to, at this point, go back. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is a reason why he's called Kaviraj. He's one of the most brilliant poets in the history of the world, and he's given such a systematic presentation of Gaura Lila in Chaitanya Charitamrita. In the first, I think, 14 verses, he gives a Mangalacharana in which the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita is found. In the 6th verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita, the whole book is packed up in one verse. And in each and every chapter, he gives a Mangalacharana verse which unpacks that particular chapter. So if we want to speak something about the 13th chapter of the Madhya Lila, let's look back on the invocation verse for this chapter. Kaviraj Goswami is described. Sajiyat Krishna Chaitanya Shri Rattagre Nanartaya Yenasiji Jagatam Chitram Jagannato Vismita, excuse me. May the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who danced in front of the car of Sri Jagannath, be all glorified. By seeing his dancing, not only was the whole universe held in wonder, but Lord Jagannath himself became very much astonished. So I think that probably most of you who are watching from America attended the wonderful festival recently in New York City, the Rath Yatra festival there. Sometimes speaking with devotees, I find some of them have a little bit of a confusion about Rath Yatra. And sometimes they feel like, well, this is something for the non-devotees, or maybe it's something just for the devotees. It's kind of hard to pick which one it is. I remember some years ago, the first time I had gone to Europe in many years, we were asked to speak something at a Rath Yatra festival in a big city in Europe. And it was the first time that I had spoken before a group of non-devotees in like probably a decade, after living in Jagannath Puri for so long and just taking devotees on Prikrama and speaking mostly to devotees. And they asked me to say something about the meaning of Rath Yatra. And I looked out in the audience, and first thing I noticed is a gambling casino right next to the Rath Yatra cart. And I saw a lot of men, a lot of older men with younger girls, and it didn't really look like their wives. I don't know who those girls were, but they didn't look very proper to me. And so many people were smoking cigarettes and eating hamburgers or drinking alcohol. And I thought, oh my God, how am I supposed to tell them about Rath Yatra? So I thought, anyway, I'll just tell them the truth. So I said, this is a festival which celebrates how when the devotee cries for God, God cries for the devotee. And this is a festival which commemorates how the devotees, how God sometimes is captured by organized religion. And the meaning of this festival is taking God away from organized religion and bringing him to the village of our hearts. That was my spontaneous explanation of Rath Yatra. And somehow it worked. And the people there were very charmed by that. It seemed to be. So we see Rath Yatra in two different ways. And I'd like to start from a little bit of a distance with a few stanzas of a song by the medieval Gaudiya poet whose name was Yadu Das. And he spoke about the Rath Yatra in the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in a way that's very, helps us to understand the purpose of this for devotees in New York when we're doing something for preaching. Chori ke mahanto mele koraye kirtana keli sata sampradaya gaya geet. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Bhaji Chata Dasako Gagana Bedilaro Deki Jagannatha Anandita. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Gora Hai. So this is New York Rath Yatra. This is Rath Yatra in Jagannath Puri. Chodike Mahanta Mele Koreye Kirtana Keli. Chodike means in all the four directions. Mahanta Mele. There's all kinds of different people there. And you're looking around and you're thinking, wait a minute, I don't know. Are all these guys from ISKCON? I have some doubt. This one looks like maybe a Gaudiya Mat devotee. This one looks like he's in a different sampradaya. This might be a Babaji. I don't know. This is Rath Yatra in Jagannath Puri. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 13, I think that the word sampradaya is mentioned over a dozen times. Again and again, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami uses that word to describe different followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What do you mean by that? Because we're the Gora Sampradaya, right? The Gaudiya Sampradaya. But when he speaks about the followers of Advaitacharya, when he speaks about the followers of Srivas Thakur, Nityananda Prabhu, Gadadhar, and others, he mentions the word Sampradaya because each one of those groups was a separate group. This also, by the way, was Srila Prabhupada's vision with ISKCON. He didn't just want a big, huge institution, but he wanted small, sweet groups. And this is Rath Yatra. Although there's Chodike Mahanta Meli, Koreye Kirtana Keli, Satta Sampradaya Gai, Satta Sampradaya Gai, there's hundreds of different sampradayas coming together and everybody's singing. Still there's small groups, Chodike Mahanta Meli. And it's very indicative of the Rath Yatra. This is the ceremony of Rath Yatra. Everyone is welcome because this is the festival of Lord Jagannath. And if we think, oh, this person, he's a Ridvik, he shouldn't be here, or he's from the Gaudiya Mat, then you're not thinking in the mood of Rath Yatra because Chodike Mahanta Meli, this is for everyone. This is a festival for everyone to come together and chant and dance. Koreye Kirtana Keli. Keli means the pastimes of Kirtan. And there in the midst of that mood, when everybody is welcome, Bhaje Chatur Dashako Gagana Bedilaro Deki Jagannatha Anandita. The sound of the coals. So many Bhaja Chaturas, there's 14 mridangas or more. 14 mridangas described in Chaitanya Charitamrita of Mahaprabhu's Kirtan. Gagana Bedilaro. They're seeming like they're going to break the sky. And everyone, Deki Jagannatha Anandita, everyone is looking at the Lord of the universe with great ecstasy. And what is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood in this kirtan? Gora Hai Unamata Nityananda Acharya Advaita Chandra Pandita Srivasa Haridas. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Esha Bhare Sange Kore Maje Nache Gora Hare Bhakata Mandala Charipas. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram. Gora Hai Unamata Nityananda Acharya Advaita Chandra Pandita Srivasa Haridas. They're the most intimate associates of Mahaprabhu are. Unamata Nityananda, that madman Nityananda Prabhu, the Acharya Advaita Chandra. Srivas Pandit was there. Haridas Thakur was there. And all of them, Eshabari Sangi Kori Maje Nachi Goda, they're all mad. And in the midst of them, Maje Nachi Goda Hari, Bhakata Malada Charipash. They're in the circle of that devotees. Mark the word, that mandala, Bhakata Mandala, which is Charipash, that circle which also binds Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu is dancing. Maje Nachi Goda Hari. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gets so much pleasure from this. As Prabhuji was just mentioning, in our Krishna Katamrita Bindu magazine. We just sent out the 501st issue. I'll invite everybody to see that if you'd like. There's an article that I wrote, something about the tradition of Patra paintings. And we also printed a short article from Thakur Bhaktivinoda's Chaitanya Siksamrita. And let me read a few words from that, which are very kind of a purport to this song by the poet Yadudas. Bhaktivinoda says, to be controlled by superstition causes many problems. From superstition arises prejudice. With prejudice, there is no respect for truth. Wearing the signs of the Vaishnava is one of the methods of cultivating devotion involving the body. But to think that is the distinguishing characteristic of a Vaishnava is a superstition arising from sampradaya prejudice. Controlled by such false beliefs, a person may not respect a real Vaishnava who's not wearing those marks. If a devotee cannot find good association within his own organization, he will not venture to find good association elsewhere if he has such prejudice. Since without good association nothing can be accomplished, such a devotee falls into a dangerous position. Those who are bound to the Varnashram system by prejudice also fail to develop a taste for the higher level of bhakti. Sometimes hatred, which degrades a person even more, may also appear. So this doesn't mean just that someone should go running out to find association in some other group. My Guru Maharaj said that Srila Prabhupada will send you association. But we see even within our Krishna conscious movement, we have many different sanghas. We have a sangha of my god brothers. There's sanghas of Srila Jayapataka Maharaj. There's sanghas of Purnachandra Maharaj. There's sanghas of Radhanath Maharaj. There's so many different sanghas of so many different Vaishnavas. And if someone thinks that, oh, I can't find good association outside of this sangha, if he has that kind of prejudice, then Bhaktivinoda says he's going to fall into a dangerous position. So this is a little meditation we can have with the Rath Yatra. This is a kind of external meditation. That a purpose is that it's open for everyone. We want everyone to take part. And what to speak if someone's a Gaudiya Mat devotee, if someone's a Babaji, what to speak if someone's a Babaji, if they're a member of the Ramanuja Sampradaya or some other Vaishnava Sampradaya, they're welcome. And what to speak of that if they're a Sikh, if they're a Muslim, if they're a Christian. Because we want everyone to come and take part. Now, it's a little difficult sometimes for devotees to come together and exhibit this kind of non-sectarian mood. But here in this song, the poet Yadudas is speaking about kirtan. Hari Katha is a little more high class. And it's a little more difficult. Even within our society, Radhanath Maharaj has a particular mood. My Guru Maharaj has a particular mood. And sometimes devotees, they like to hear from that particular Vaishnava and that particular mood. So Hari Katha, sometimes there's smaller sanghas. But kirtan is something that we can do with everyone. So Srila Prabhupada in his purport, I'd like to go back to that now. And this one sentence, Prabhupada packs so much into this. He says, Sri Kshetra is a place of Aishvarya Leela, just as Vrindavan is a place of Madhurya Leela. So it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Aishvarya Priti Sankuchita, that the nature of Aishvarya means opulence, and sweet, and Madhurya means sweetness. And this opulence, the nature of opulence is it makes love shrink. Aishvarya Jnana Pradhanya Sankuchita Priti, that when this opulence is prominent, then love of God is shrunken. So then what is Jagannath Puri? This is something we'd like to explore today. Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, citing the Anubhashya commentary of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, speaks about the mood of the meeting in Rath Yatra. And today we'd like to take you on a journey which goes from Vrindavan to Dwarka, from Dwarka back to Vrindavan, and then from Vrindavan to Kurukshetra, and then from Kurukshetra to Jagannath Puri, and back to Vrindavan again. And this is the nature of Jagannath Puri. The Skanda Purana describes the ontological position of Jagannath Puri, describes the Dharma. Dharma comes from Dhrudatta, means the intrinsic quality of something. And the Skanda Purana describes Jagannath Puri in the following words, Rahasyam etat paramam Vishnu stanam anuttamam. That this place, Stanam Anuttamam, this very excellent abode of Lord Vishnu, is Rahasyam etat paramam. It's a great mystery. Is this a place of sweetness, or is this a place of opulence? We see there's so much opulence in Jagannath Puri. In fact, if you come to Jagannath Puri and you ask someone where the Jagannath Mandir is, probably they'll understand you, but they don't call it the Jagannath Mandir here. They call it the Sri Mandir. Because as I mentioned to our friends in that European city, God has become captured by some mechanical organized religion. Vrindavan Krishna, Vrindavan Bihari Krishna, Radha Raman Krishna has become captured by Lakshmi Devi and locked up in the Sri Mandir in Jagannath Puri. So it's a place of great, great opulence. And I wrote some article about this some years ago in one of our magazines about the opulence of Puri. I don't want to try to go into that so in depth as we did in that article, but if you're interested, it's in, it's in our magazine. Maybe you could get it out, Krishna Kun. Oh, you can't reach over there. Just 1 second. 1 second. It's something we printed in this issue of our Krishna Katamrita magazine, The Hidden Identity of Lord Jagannath, and goes into that in depth. So if someone's really interested, you could write me. Actually, I could send you a soft copy of it also, that art. But I'd like today to do something a little different than something that I haven't written about before, but something I've had a great desire to speak about. We want to turn to a few different books, one of which is Jiva Goswami's Gopal Champu, and another which is a book called Vrindavan Lilamrita by Nandikishore Goswami. Nandikishore Goswami was a devotee in the line of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he was the Mahant at one point in the Nityananda Vat, just near to the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. And he had personal darshan of Krishna. That's a very wonderful story. And he, actually by the mercy of his disciple, Bondu, and he wrote this book, Vrindavan Lilamrita, which is all based on the Bhagavatam and the writings of our Goswamis, and he gives a little more. We'll read some things to you from that. We have a project here in Jagannath Puri we're calling GORA, which is the Gaudiya Odia Research Association we recently started. And our purpose, our desire is to translate rare, little-known books, both from Bengali and from Odia, which express the Gaudiya conception of Mahaprabhu and Jagannath and Puri. And so this Vrindavan Lilamrita is one such book, and with the blessings of the devotees, we hope to print that sometime in the future. But mostly now we'll be going to Gopal Champu. This speaks about, this is from the Uttara Champu, chapter 23. This speaks about what happened after Krishna had gone to Dwarka, and Krishna was there, and he was suffering. Now, Nandikishore Goswami, in Vrindavan Lilamrita, he sings about this in his Bengali Paya. He says that Krishna was there in Dwarka, and he was sleeping with his wives, Satyabhama and Rukmini and others, but they were speaking amongst themselves, and Krishna was acting in a very strange way sometimes. Achantani magna kabu koraye pralap. Kabu radha radha boli kore anutap. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. There in Dwarka, sometimes Krishna would become delirious in ecstasy. And Pralap, in his madness, he would start calling out, Kabu Radha Radha Boli. he would start calling out the names of Radha. Kabu mora kori rahe bohe ashudar achanta sudipto hoy satvika vikar. Kabu means sometimes, Kabu mora kori rahi bohe ashudar. Sometimes Krishna would become quiet and he would just start to cry. And then other times, all the different symptoms of Astasatvikara Bhav would appear on his body. And seeing that, Rukmini and Satyabhama were astonished. They said, what is this? Who is this love for? And who is this personality you're speaking about named Radha? And Krishna told them, you can't understand. He said, Ami Rini. Braja Lokera Premi Ami Hoyachi Rini. I'm a Rini, I'm a debtor. I'm in debt to the residents of Braj. I think about them all the time. And amongst all the residents of Braj, especially, I'm in debt to Shrimati Radharani. And when I just think of Radharani, my heart breaks. They have only one hope, those residents of Vrindavan. Mani buji ekamatra achaye karan amaragamana se dharaye jiban. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. There's only one thing which keeps them alive, that I promised them. When I was leaving Vrindavan, I told them, Ayasya, I'm going to return. And that hope is the only thing which keeps them alive. And then Krishna told them, to Rukmini and Satyabhama, that I wrote a letter to the residents of Vrindavan. And then Satyabhama and Rukmini, they said, well, how can we meet this Radha? We really want to meet her. And Krishna said, well, I would also like to meet her. He said, but it's very, very difficult to meet Radha. She won't come here, and I can't go there, because if I go there, then all the kings like Shishupal and Dantavakra and others, they're going to know about my love for the residents of Vrindavan, and they'll attack Vrindavan. I can't go there, and they can't come here. So there is some hope, there is some way. Jiva Goswami, meanwhile, in Gopal Champu, describes that some messengers arrived one day in Vrindavan. And when they arrived, just by coincidence, Nanda Maharaj was having a meeting with all the residents of Vrindavan. And they were speaking about how they can no longer stay alive without association of Krishna, and what can we do? And Nanda Maharaj was telling them that we can't go to Dwarka, Krishna can't come here, but I've heard something. Nandi Kishore Goswami describes Krishna's words in Vrindavan Lilamrita. Krishna says, Katadina pore habe surya uparage tate tirtha snana jatra kore mahabhage. He says in a few days there's going to be an uparag. There's going to be an eclipse of the sun. And all the pious people are going to take a holy bath. Jimata Vaibhava Jaiche Adi Pacha Hoy Jata Biridana Dika Shakale Koroi Visheshaita Kurukshete Sabaragamane Ehi Barshe Hoibe Mahagrahana Karane. And he says, especially everybody goes for this Mahagrahana, this great eclipse. They go to Kurukshetra. And definitely the residents of Vrindavan will go there. So meanwhile, while Krishna is speaking this, Krishna says, Yeyatamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham, that as someone approaches me, I reciprocate accordingly. Krishna is speaking like this about the residents of Vrindavan, because the residents of Vrindavan are speaking like this about Krishna. And Nanda Maharaj was telling the residents of Vrindavan that we can't go to Dwarka, Krishna can't come here, but I've heard that Krishna may go to Kurukshetra. And just at that moment, a messenger arrived from Krishna. And he said, I have a letter from Krishna. And he read out that letter. Would you like to hear what that letter says? Yavach chatuk shamna vyati milana krite smabir udukti rishta tasmat klishta vayam tapratividam aduna tatalabdaschirena asmin surye graheya nikila janataya prayanamam karunam chaitram vyajaya kuryamahamatabbhavatam anjasa sanjanaya. Krishna wrote this letter. They read it out. Oh, Father, Bapa, as long as I haven't destroyed my enemies, Yavat Chatuk Shamna, I haven't destroyed my enemies. I have some desire, Vyati Milana Kritesma Bir Udiktir Ishta. I have some desire how we can meet together, have Milan. And this is causing me pain in my heart. But I found a solution, that there's going to be this Grahana, Surya Grahana, this eclipse of the sun at Kurukshetra. And I can meet you there at that time, at that place. And then the letter went on to say, Yadyapyaham gokulokamasu pratisvam abhyash iraho bhajami tatapi yena pratiyanti te mi milantu mama tatapadeva santu. He said, of course, I'll come to Braj and directly meet everyone. I promised Ayesha before I left, I'm going to return. But those who don't believe that, they can come and meet me in Kurukshetra. And the other people, they can stay. Milantu mam tatapadeva santu. They can wait in Braj for me to return there. And then Krishna said something very, very tricky. Gavo mama chitkalpaha saki nichayas tattacha pranaha tasmad valaita nishtam tasu sadami tu tishtam tu. He said that those gavo, and the gavo means the cows. Even though those cows, mama chitkalpaha, they're my heart. Saki nichayas tattacha prana, my friends are my life. My friends should stay in Braj with the cows and take care of the cows. This is very tricky, and we'll explain this in a moment. And then Krishna sent, the messenger delivered that message, and he said, please excuse me, I have somewhere else to go. And he left that assembly, and he went to a small kunj on the bank of the Jamuna, where Shrimati Radharani and some of the gopis were gathered. And he pulled out another letter, which Krishna had written to the gopis. Krishna said that although I'm having a secret meeting with you, and Mamalasati, it's very, very happy meeting, Mohosangati Yusmakabi. You're not aware of that meaning because spurti brantya. You think it's just my spurti. You think it's just some ecstasy. So it's possible for us to meet together in a place where people are not opposing our meeting, where they're not present. So my dear gopis, let's meet together in Kurukshetra. Now, there's a problem. What is the problem? Okay, the gopis of Braj, for so very long, had been hankering again to meet with their Pranavallabha Krishna. But how could they do so in the presence of their husbands? Those husbands were the cowherd boys of Braj. Now Krishna, in a very tricky way, had written a public letter to them that, my dear friends, although I want to meet with you, you should stay in Vrindavan to take care of the cows. And so in this way, Krishna very cleverly arranged for those apparent husbands of the gopis who previously had prevented them from meeting with Krishna from going to Kurukshetra. And those husbands, they saw that if the gopis are not allowed to go, they're going to die. So they were willing to let the gopis go, but they wanted themselves to go also. But then they thought, well, Krishna's asked us to stay here. So then they spoke with Nanda Maharaj, and Nanda Maharaj said, no, someone has to stay back and guard Vrindavan and take care of the cows. Yes, we'll do that thing. So at that time, Jiva Goswami says that Mother Yashoda, who had a very secret but very strong affection for those gopis, and she suspected that they had more pain and separation from Krishna than even she did. Mother Yashoda called for Srimati Radharani and the other gopis and said, you must also come to Kurukshetra when we go to meet Krishna. So in this way, there were two groups of people going to meet in Kurukshetra. On one side, the members of the Yadu dynasty were going from Dwarka, and it seemed as though there were earthquakes rumbling the earth, because there were hundreds and thousands of great war elephants who looked like moving mountains. And there were hundreds and thousands of millions of horses, war horses, and hundreds of thousands of chariots. And each one of those chariots was full of gold and jewels, which they were intending to give away in charity at Kurukshetra. And all those warriors were wearing gold and silver armor. And when the sun reflected on all those jewels and gold ornaments and things, it made a brightness for hundreds and hundreds of miles around, blinding anyone who were looking. So in this way, there was a kind of moving, blinding brightness, which seemed like a moving earthquake. The members of the Yadu dynasty going to Kurukshetra. But at the same time, the residents of Vrindavan also went. And Jiva Goswami says that although the cows stayed behind in Vrindavan, the bulls, they went. And in fact, he says the bulls, they were heading the way. And those bulls were the old friends of Krishna. They were strong enough to go, but the cows who had small calves and were milking those, giving milk to those calves, they had to stay behind with the boys. Those Brijbasis, they were traveling also in chariots, but those chariots were not made out of gold and jewels and silver. They were made out of wood. They didn't have piles of jewels in the back of their carts. Rather, they had gobar, cow dung. And why were they carrying cow dung to Kurukshetra? Because they knew that Krishna liked food that's cooked over the fire of the gobar, of the Braj cows, so very much. It's so very, very tasty. Jiva Goswami describes that all the chests of everybody in Braj, everybody's chests was shaking. Their tears are flowing from their eyes. Their hairs were standing on end. They were drenched with their tears. Their teeth were clattering from trembling. Their words were unintelligible. They couldn't say anything. There were so many thoughts appearing and disappearing. I'll meet Krishna. He'll say this to me. Maybe I'll say this to him. Or maybe Krishna will ignore me. What will happen? And this way they were constantly in confusion. And the Braj gopis, they were running like the speed of the wind to go to Kurukshetra to meet Krishna. And then sometimes they were stopping. And they became stunned in ecstasy thinking about Krishna. At other times they fell down on the ground unconscious. And in this way, all the Brijbasis were moving in a very, very confused way. One commentator on the Bhagavatam describes that there were three attitudes present in Kurukshetra. There were many pious kings who were coming there, and their purpose in going was punya labha, that they wanted to get some pious credit. They wanted to gain some piety. The members of the Yadu dynasty, the Bhagavatam, 82nd chapter, which describes the meeting in Kurukshetra, describes Krishnena bhakt ast iti. That they were thinking, may we get devotion, bhakti to Krishna. That was their mood. The pious kings, punya labha, they wanted piety. The members of the Yadu dynasty were praying for bhakti to Krishna, but the Brijbasis, Shama Sundara Chandavadana Tanira Ek Falak Darshan, they were just praying, if we can just get Ek Falak Darshan, just one moment's glimpse of Shama Sundar's brilliant moon-like face. And why is it that they want that? This is the mood of the prayers to Lord Jagannath that we recite. Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Some devotees came to me after Bhakti Vikash Maharaj printed his wonderful book on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. There's an essay which he included in there, which Srila Bhaktisiddhanta criticizes some mundane people And their understanding of this phrase, Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatume, that he's saying they just want to see Jagannath for their own sense gratification, but we should want to serve them. But don't think that the Brijbasi's mood is like that. Why do the Brijbasis feel so much separation from Krishna when he's gone to Mathura? What is the problem? Radhanath Maharaj, for many years, when he would go to Vrindavan, he would take a train, he would arrive in Mathura, and he would walk from Mathura to Vrindavan. And it would take him a few hours. If Radhanath Maharaj can walk that distance, can't the Brijbasis, can't the gopis walk to Mathura? Don't they have enough love? Krishna is so close by. He's not in such a far distant place. Why don't they want to go to see him there if their desire to see him is so great? Their desire to see him is not the same as a desire of some sense enjoyer. Or sometimes devotees, they say, oh, Prabhu, I want to have darshan. Did you see the picture which we sent out by email today? That's darshan. I don't think Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would appreciate that so much. He had a different conception of what is darshan. The darshan means that the Lord sees you by your devotional attitude. Not that you have some sense gratification looking at the deity. Oh, the deity looks so beautiful today. I love this red outfit. The pujaris did really good. I approve. Darshan doesn't mean your approval. Darshan means that the Lord sees us. The Lord sees the devotee because of the devotee's desire to serve. So when it said that Shama Sundar Chandravadana Tanya Eka Falak Darshan, that the desire, the Brijbasis, is to see for one moment Sham Sundar's lotus-like face. It's not what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta found fault with in the mood of some persons who are reciting this prayer, Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatume. Depends on the mood that someone recites that verse in. And the gopis, the residents of Vrindavan, they're praying. They want to see Krishna just for one moment because they want to serve Krishna. And Jiva Goswami says that when they first arrived from a distance, immediately Krishnasya Saurabhya Bharena Pushtim Tata Vikrishtim Gamita Bhajay Saha. The first thing is they could smell Krishna even before seeing Krishna. And when Krishna and Balaram heard that the people of the small village of Braj had come there, then they reverted, they adopted their mood of cowherd boys. Their minds were melting because they wanted to serve the Brijbasis with devotion. They wanted to run and meet them, but they couldn't move quickly. They were stunned with ecstasy. So they sent some message to the assembled kings with some excuse. I have some business to do. I have some friends from Braj. And Jiva Goswami says, very interesting thing, Udava Dwara Sambhavan Nibrita Sambhavana Deshi Stambayam Asatu. That Krishna called for Uddhava. He put Uddhava in front of him. And Uddhava came and he took Nanda Maharaj and the others, Uddhava Dwara, through Uddhava, Sambhavan Nibrita Sambhavana Deshi. He took them to a secluded place where he could speak with them in private. And this is the nature of Vrindavan. This is our Gaudiya mood. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived in Ramakeli, it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there were millions of people following him. At that time, Rupa and Sanatana Goswami advised him, you cannot go to Vrindavan like this. And those words have a great deal of purport to us. We also have a great mission, which we want to have millions and millions of people taking part. Chodike Mahanta Meli Koreye Kirtana Kelly. We want to do kirtan with people from all directions at Rath Yatra in New York. But we want to return home to that secluded place, Nibrita Sambhavana Deshi, where we can enter into Vrindavan. Unless we have that small sangha, we can't do that. So, leaving aside those persons who are not so intimate, Krishna and Balaram, keeping Uddhava in front of him, went to see the residents of Vrindavan. And as soon as Krishna and Balaram saw Nanda Maharaj, then immediately they fell down on the ground to offer obeisances. And Nanda Maharaj's body began to shake. And his eyes filled with tears and his hair stood on end. And then Nanda Maharaj just embraced the two of them. And he began to cry with a choked voice. And although Krishna and Balaram wanted to embrace him because there were all these other people standing around watching everything, Krishna and Balaram thought it's more appropriate we just fall at his feet. They won't understand the relationship of Vrindavan because there in Kurukshetra is a meeting of two things. We spoke about this opulence and sweetness, but in Kurukshetra, both elements are present. Nanda Maharaj didn't want to see them offering obeisances, but he couldn't control his emotions. His hands were shaking. He couldn't move them properly. He was just looking here and there. He didn't know what to do. And then he saw Vasudeva and others. And when Vasudeva saw him, he said, "Oh, Nanda Maharaj, may you live very long." And then Nanda Maharaj became a little reserved. Oh, these people, they won't understand our mood with Krishna. And so then he made Krishna and Balaram comfortable. And he asked them, "So how are you doing?" And Krishna and Balaram stood before Nanda Maharaj with folded hands. And then Vasudeva brought Nanda Maharaj to his residence. And Krishna and Balaram followed, and they all worshipped Nanda Maharaj there. And then Krishna said, "Bappa, Father, where's Mata? Where's Mother?" And Nanda Maharaj, then thinking of the love of Yashoda, he became emotional and he couldn't speak anything. And he just pointed to a cart which was covered with cloth, which was surrounded by many women. And Krishna and Balaram then went there and taking permission from those ladies, he went inside. And Krishna, who I sometimes comment, is not actually a brahmachari. No offense meant to any brahmacharis. But Krishna is a mamachari. He's a devotee of his mother. And he saw his mother. And he went running to Mother Yashoda. Mother Yashoda going, "Kanu, Kanu." And she began to embrace him. And Mother Yashoda became completely ecstatic. And at that time, Devaki and some of the other ladies were there, and they saw how Mother Yashoda's body had become so thin and dried up. And they wanted to say something to her. Krishna and Balaram fell at the feet of their mother. Mother Yashoda raised them up, and she embraced those two boys on her chest, and milk was pouring out from her breasts, and the tears were showering down, and this way she was giving them a bath. And Devaki and others were watching, and they became confused. They thought, "What is this? She's giving a bath to the whole universe. There's like a river of tears and milk coming out." And then Krishna and Balaram fell at the feet of their mother, and they began to cry. And then everybody there began to cry. And Mother Yashoda, seeing all that, she became a little sober, seeing the other devotees there for a moment. And Krishna and Balaram felt some pain in their hearts. And then they sat Mother Yashoda down, and they put all of them around her. And Jiva Goswami says, "Varshiki Jadi Bhavid Ganavali." Jadi means if. Varshiki Jadi Bhavid Ganavali. What's the use of a barsha? What's the use of a farmer rather? Seka palibir alam krishi braje. What's the use of a farmer watering his fields, taking a bucket of water and going and pouring if there's a monsoon cloud coming? So the love of Devaki and the others in the presence of Yashoda was like a farmer's water pot as compared to the monsoon cloud of love of Mother Yashoda. Mother Yashoda began to smell their heads and moistening her body with her tears. She began to wipe their faces again and again. And then Devaki, she spoke up. Yata yata sajanmata eva chiram aparichitta pitriktav imo dharmam mataro pitaratam prapadya pakshma. She said that although they weren't really your children, although Krishna wasn't really your son, you were so nice, you were so good, you had this dharma that you acted like he was really your child. You acted like his mother. All glories to you, Mother Yashoda. One Vaishnava requested, hearing that, he said, Brajeshwarya Kimva Bharamutaritam. What did Brajeshwarya Yashoda say when she heard those comments? Because maybe the men can't understand so much hearing this. But ladies, they have this expertise sometimes. They'll say something, but they mean something else. This is known as parokshavad. So indirectly, Devaki was saying, Krishna's not really your son, and it's really nice that you took care of him, but actually he's my son. So, Bhajeshwarya Kimva Badena Utaritam. How did Yashoda take this? Yashoda didn't even notice, because Yashoda was so much in ecstasy. She couldn't see anything other than her Krishna. And she was just gazing at Krishna again and again and again. And so Krishna spent some time with Mother Yashoda. And then again taking Uddhava and putting Uddhava in front of him. And this is why this 47th chapter of the 10th canto, the Bhagavatam, this Brahma Gita, is very important. The 46th and 47th chapters which speak about Uddhava's arrival in Vrindavan and his meeting with the Brijbasis. And how we've been speaking something in some of our morning classes, how the 14th chapter, the Anchalila, and the song of the Kapalika Yogi, and that's a long discussion, what's a Kapalika Yogi. But that song of the Kapalika Yogi is a reflection of that Brahma Gita, that 47th chapter, the 10th canto, when the gopis meet Uddhava. So Jiva Goswami says Krishna put Uddhava in front, and he went to meet the gopis. And the gopis, when Krishna saw them, the gopis were very, very thin. Krishna Malina Mastrita. Malina Malini is a symptom of dasa, or the 10 symptoms of Sudura Prabhas. There's 10 different symptoms of this greatest type of separation, known as Sudura Prabhas. And one of them is Malina, when they become very, very thin. They were wearing very old clothes. The gopis hadn't eaten in so long. When Krishna saw that, he became dizzy, and he took support at Uddhava, and he began to cry and cry. And Krishna didn't understand who he was, what had happened. And Radharani and Krishna met. Nandakishore Goswami described this meeting in a very wonderful way in his Vrindavan Lilamrita. And he says that Krishna went there, and he thought to himself that by seeing me, their external pain is going to go away. Sadarana bhaya duk to sabaragela, but antarina duk dura tatapi nahila. But still there's going to be some inner pain of the gopis. And understanding that inner pain of the gopis, Krishna spoke to them in a sweet way. Tabita sabhara shok lagava karane shamma karaite nija aparada gane. Krishna told them, Krishna put straw in his teeth, and he came before the gopis, and he said, please forgive me for my offenses. I've offended you. I've offended your love for me in so many different ways. And at that time, that inner pain of the gopis began to go away. And then the gopis, they made a seat for Krishna, just as is described at the time of the Ras Leela. They took their uttariyas, their outer cloths, and they made a pile of them for Krishna to sit on. So they made another pile like that. And then they sat around Krishna, just as they did at the time of the Ras Leela. And the gopis, they said, you forgot us. You promised you were going to return. And you sent this fellow Uddhava to us. And he told us all about yoga, that we should practice yoga. We can't do this yoga. What is this that you're telling us? And Krishna, Nanda Kishore Goswami says, became very ashamed. Tabi Krishna Chandra Ati Lajita Hoya Kahite Lagia Kichu Vinaya Korea. Krishna became ashamed, Lajita. He became very shy. And he started speaking to the gopis in a very, very humble way. Krishna told them that I'm a great offender and that I'm always in your debt. I always spent my days thinking of you, remembering you, but no one could understand my sorrow. You were surrounded with your girlfriends who knew me, who understood your love, but I was alone in Dwarka with all these queens and people who couldn't understand my feelings. I suffered even more than you suffered. I hid my feelings from everybody. Only the Satyabhama and Rukmini, they understood a little something. I spoke something to them, but I couldn't speak to anyone else. No one else could understand. Many, many things are there. I want to try to keep this short. In that 82nd chapter, the 10th canto, Shukadeva Goswami only gives one verse spoken by the gopis. How do we understand that they haven't seen Krishna in so long and they only have one verse to say? What is that verse? It's a very special verse. That verse was also recited by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during the Rath Yatra, and that verse appears in the Madhya Lila chapter 13 of Chaitanya Charitamrita. The gopis, they offered prayers to Krishna. Ahuschate nalina naba padada vindam yogeshvarai hridi vichinta magada bodai samsara kupa patito tadanavalam geham jusam apimanashyudiyat sadhana. They said, our dear Lord, your God, your Bhagavan, ahushchate nalina naba padada vinda. You have a navel like a lotus flower from which the lotus flower comes out, which Lord Brahma is born on. You have these lotus feet. You're the greatest, you're the shelter for those great yogis. Your feet are worshipped and meditated on by these yogis and great philosophers. For those of us samsara kupa patitot who are fallen in this well of family life, we wish that those feet would also be awakened in our hearts, even though we're just ordinary ladies. Now, does this sound like the words of Radharani? In his Sartha Darshani commentary on this verse, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the gopis here are speaking parokshavad. They're saying one thing, but they're meaning another thing. It has a hidden meaning. That the gopis, they're speaking externally with awe and reverence, but actually the gopis are angry. And they're saying, oh, now you've gone to Dwarka. Now you're a big man. You become God. Please accept our obeisances. And the greatest of the yogis and people are worshiping you. You sent that fellow Uddhava to us, trying to tell us that we should meditate on you and that we should do yoga. But we can't do yoga because samsara kupa patita. We're fallen. We can't do yoga because to do yoga you have to have a peaceful mind. And our mind is never peaceful because we're always thinking of you. We're always agitated. We can't think of anything but you. So in this way, this verse has different meanings. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking this to Lord Jagannath in Puri, that now you become captured by organized religion. You've gone to Puri, you become God, you become Bhagavan. Do you still remember Vrindavan? Do you remember your father and mother, Nanda and Yashoda? Do you remember the Jamuna? Do you remember the cows and the boys? Do you remember the gopis of Vrindavan? Or have you forgotten all of us? This is the meaning, the very, very deep meaning of this verse. As long as he stayed in Kurukshetra, Jiva Goswami says that Krishna was enjoying pastimes of the gopis each night, every second, fulfilling all the desires that they had. He says, but there was a problem. Yet api brajakula mahila harir api sasvat parasparam beju tat api natriptik jagne hridayad viraho gata gamano. Although they were meeting, there was union. There was the happiness of union, Milan. At the same time, in that same container, there was a feelings of separation, of viraha. Because although they were meeting, there was this apprehension that in a few days we're going to be split apart. Although they were meeting, they were remembering, previously you promised Ayesha you were going to return and you didn't return. And now in a few days you're going to leave. What are we going to do? Some years ago, I did some research on an interesting topic about the festival in Puri. Hema Jagannath knows this festival very well, but some of the, I don't know if they're Deshis or Bideshis, I guess we'll call them Bideshi devotees. They may not understand the Bahuda Rath. We don't have the Bahuda Rath in ISKCON. But in Puri, they take Lord Jagannath from Nilachal, the Sundarachal. They take him from the Sri Mandir to the Gundicha, which is actually where Jagannath first appeared. And that's a long story. I can't go into that right now. But that's the place which is like Vrindavan. And he stays there for some time. And while he's there, that prasadam is the best because Srimati Radharani is personally cooking for him. And then after a week or two, then Jagannath, he returns on the day known as Bahuda Ekadasi. And there's a Bahuda Rath Yatra, and Jagannath returns to the Sri Mandir. So what kind of festival is that? And I had this question, did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu take part in that return Rath Yatra? And if he did, how did he participate? So I went and I asked so many different sadhus. I spoke to the king of Puri. I spoke to many, many different sadhus in Puri and asked him this question. Did Mahaprabhu take, because in the Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 15, text 16, it said that Mahaprabhu and his associates took part in all the festivals of Jagannath and Puri. So I was asking many people, did Mahaprabhu take part? And generally they said, no, he didn't take part. But Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that he took part. So what was his mood then? But again, generally everybody was saying, no, he didn't observe that festival. But then I came across the Krishna Chaitanya Charitamrita by Murari Gupta. And Murari Gupta was one of the first biographies of Mahaprabhu. And in the fourth section, the 21st chapter of that book, he describes that indeed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took part in that Bahuda Rath Yatra. And how did he do it? Gaurachandra Ratam Anugata. Anugata. That Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu followed behind the cart of Lord Jagannath. In the same way that Srimati Radharani and the gopis followed behind the chariot of Akrura when he's taking Krishna away from Vrindavan, Mahaprabhu followed behind the chariot of Jagannath and Puri when he was leaving the Vrindavan-like Gundicha Mandir to go back to the Sri Mandir. In other words, Mahaprabhu was falling behind going, don't leave, don't leave, don't go, don't go. So this is the mood of Rath Yatra. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Madhya Lila, we're supposed to speak about Madhya Lila, speaks about the mood of the gopis and Radharani at that Rath Yatra time. Tomara charana mora braja pura gare, udaye kore jare tabe vancha pure. They said, oh Krishna, if your lotus feet could again come to our home in Vrindavan, then our desires will be fulfilled. Say Bhava, say Krishna, say Vrindavan, Jabe Pai, Chabe Hoy, Bhansita Puran. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Srimati Radharani prayed like this. She longed for Krishna to take her back to Vrindavan. Although Krishna was meeting with the gopis every day in Kurukshetra, it wasn't enough. They wanted to be in that place of sweetness, the place of Vrindavan. So what is Jagannath Puri? Srila Prabhupada in this purport, he says that Puri is like Kurukshetra. And Kurukshetra is a place of great opulence. But the nature of opulence, as we described earlier, is priti sankuchita. It makes love shrunken. But the nature of Jagannath Puri is something different. In the language of my Guru Maharaj, he said, Madhurja Rasaganaiti Murti, that Lord Jagannath is a combined form of conjugal mellow. He's a condensed form of conjugal mellow. That Lord Jagannath is Aishvarja Madhurja Yugala Milan, Sri Jagannath. He's a combined form of both sweetness and opulence. That's Jagannath. And this is also Jagannath Puri Dham. It's two opposites in one container. It's like Vrindavan. Sundarachal is there. In the pastimes of meeting Krishna and bringing Krishna to the Gundicha Mandir is like Vrindavan. But at the same time, it's like Kurukshetra. And their feelings are like the gopis of Kurukshetra, although they're with Krishna in a very intimate way, in a way which in one sense is even better than in Vrindavan. Jiva Goswami indirectly indicates, because their husbands are not there. And there's nobody to capture them or bother them or anything. They can be with Krishna as much as they want. But at the same time, in that place of union, there was also separation. These two opposites, union and separation, were in one container. These opposites of sweetness and opulence were there together in one container. This is also described by Sanatana Goswami in his Brihad Bhagavatamrita. When he speaks about the nature of Jagannath Puri Dham, he says, Sri Krishna Devasya Sada Priyam Tat Ketram Yata Shri Mathura Tataiva Taparamayshvaya Bara Prakasha Lokanusari Vyavahararamyam. That just as Mathura Braj Mandala is dear to Krishna, so also is Sri Kshetra Jagannath Puri. And although this place, Paramaishvarya Bara Prakasha, here in this place is a Sri Mandir and there's great opulence, but also Lokanusari Vyavahara Ramyam. This place is also very beautiful and charming. In Jagannath Puri, three things are present in one place. There's Aishvarya, the great opulence of Lakshmi Devi's consort in Dwarka. But at the same time, there's Odaraja, the munificence, the kindness of the merciful Patit Pavan Jagannath and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the third quality which is also present is Madhurja, the sweet mood of the Braj Gopis in separation, which we see during Mahaprabhu's Gambhira Leela. So these things are described in a direct and indirect way in this Madhya Leela chapter 13. And therefore, to me, this is the essential chapter in the Madhya Leela, and this is why I wanted to speak on this chapter. And in this chapter, this particular text, 119, and especially this purport of Srila Prabhupada, where he says, Sri Kshetra is a place of Aishvarja Leela, just as Vrindavan is a place of Madhurja Leela. And he says, in the role of Srimati Radharani, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was examining whether the Lord still remembered the inhabitants of Vrindavan. So this is a little purport, something I'm trying to say in a few words. As my Guru Maharaj would sometimes say, maybe him and Jagannath, you know the audios for this. He would tell us sometimes, there's a saying in audio, which I don't know the audio words for it, but he would say that I have a very small mouth and I'm trying to say something very, very big. So it's a very big, big topic. And with such a small mouth and such a small ability and such a little bit of time, we're trying to say something. I'd like to stop here and give some opportunity for the devotees. One of my great heroes and inspirations from the beginning of my spiritual life has been Vaisheshika Prabhu. And one of the wonderful gifts that I've gotten from him is at the end of his talks, he always gives some time to ask everybody to share their what they walked away with. What is your prize? What is, share with us what you've experienced or understood, some special thing from this, or perhaps some questions. But first of all, we'd like to hear some realization of something from everybody. So if anybody has anything, Devakinandan Prabhu, I think you're in charge, or maybe Yashoda Dulal, I don't know. You're both important persons. So one of you should take charge now. tell me what to do. And if there's any reflections from anybody has any prizes they walked away with, you showed it to the law, but maybe have some comments or reflections.
Thank you. Devkinandan Prabhu is in charge. It's the Central New Jersey channel.
Yes.
But thank you. Dinabandhu Prabhu and I were exchanging notes along the side, and we were appreciating how you yourself are relishing this katha so much at the time of, describing, especially Mother Yashoda's meeting with Krishna. We saw how you were overcome with emotion, and we became overcome with emotion, seeing, the love that you had in your heart. And it's amazing. Thank you for bringing us along on that journey. It was relishable beyond description. So my mouth is tiny. It's not even small, so I can't really describe that. But thank you for sharing that.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you. I had a question, but I'll wait for other reflections.
Okay, I just have a quick comment for Devakinandan Prabhu and Hema Jagannath and others. I have a request to you, Shoda Dulal Prabhu, if you could post me some of your fingernail clippings or something in the post. Now that may sound a little strange, but the reason we would like to collect some of his fingernails is we have this hope that we can clone him and we can make different copies of Yashoda Dulal Prabhu all over the world, because we don't get enough of him wherever we go. So we figured maybe we get some of his fingernail clippings, we can do that. Is that a bona fide desire, Devakinandan Prabhu?
That's very bona fide. Because you have said it, so your scholarly wisdom, if it's coming from there, then it is bona fide.
Okay, I see a few hands are up, and I don't know how much time we've got. I don't want to get in trouble with anybody. Krishna Nam Prabhu, do you want to share some comment, reflection with us?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. It was wonderful katha. So I'm just reflecting, just like Rupa Goswami has understood the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for the verse he chanted while dancing in the Ratha Yatra. As we see in Antalila, Priyoham Ayam Krishna Sahachari Kurukshetra Militas Tadaham Sarada Tadedam Ubayo Sangam Sukham Tatapi Antar Kelan Madhura Murali Pancham Use Kalindi Pulane Yasproheti. So wonderful verse, so I'm just on that point, I was reflecting how I heard the class of Shri Gaur Maharaj's class, imbibing that mood. You are speaking the same, why did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared? Gaura Tattva, Maharaj has spoken brilliantly. So you have taken that mood and condensed it in a wonderful presentation with Kirtan, how Maharaj does. So you have always absorbed that mood of Maharaj and presented. It's wonderful to hear from you. So, and also it is a very significant that today is Baladev Vidyabhushan's disappearance day and Gangamath Goswami's appearance day. And both indeed actually from Jagannath Puri, especially Baladev Vidyabhushan is born from Orissa Puri, and he has taken initiation from Radha Damodar Prabhu, which is in the line of Shyamananda Prabhu, which is happening again. He met in Jagannath Puri area again. So it is a prominent place, you can see. And Gangamath Goswami coming back again by the order of I think after his parents passed away, same at the Jagannath Puri. Jagannath has given blessings and given in a dream that go and, go to Ganga, bank of Ganga, and settle there. And then, and she was brought back to in front of Jagannath, and all the gods were searching for her. Why did she here? Why is she here? And Jagannath told, and they arrested her. It's a wonderful day to remember Lord Jagannath and their devotees. Thank you so much for really presenting the inner mood of this katha.
Hare Krishna, I hope I can someday become a little bit of what you're seeing in me there. We're just trying to remember the words of our Guru Maharaj. We were just speaking about Gangamata Goswami yesterday, and how her Guru Maharaj, Haridas Pandit, ordered her to come back to Puri and take care of the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, which is still here. And I hope all the devotees, I would really love it. I have this dream, if Krishna Nam Prabhu and Devakinandan Prabhu, Yashoda Dulal, and Hema Jagannath, the other devotees, you could come and be with us here in Puri someday for some yatra. That would be really wonderful. We could go places and have some kathas and things. Collect some fingernail clippings from Yashoda Dulal Prabhu and like that. Thank you, Krishna Prabhu. Okay, somebody else also had Yashoda Dulapu. You had something else?
Yeah, I had a question, but I think Vamshidhari Gopal Prabhu had something to
Okay.
say.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandot Pranam. Thank you so much for such a wonderful katha. And the point I'm walking away with, Prabhuji, is that about the darshan which you said that Brajvasis don't want to take Krishna's darshan for their own sense gratification. So that's why they waited so long for when Krishna called them to Kurukshetra, then they went. Like on their own, they didn't want to go to Mathura or Dwarika to have his darshan because that would be satisfying them, not satisfying Krishna. So their whole desire and their whole mood is to satisfy Krishna, and that is so much important that we need to think that because as you said that at least for me I can say that when we go for darshan it's more of our sense gratification because as you said that we appreciate how wonderful Lord is looking, how wonderful garland and outfit and the whole scene and everything, and we just stand there and please our eyes there, but that would never come to me that hey, even Krishna is willing to see me, or means I'm not even qualified for that, but at least that mood, at least what you bring it today, that would really, I think, help me next time when I go in front of Lord. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Thank you, Prabhuji.
I didn't unpack it properly. I think that the gopis, this is why they don't want to go to Mathura. They can go to Mathura. It's not so far to go. They can go to Mathura, but why don't they go? Because they want to serve Krishna. And how can they serve in Mathura? There's no Vamsivat, there's no Jamuna, there's no Kunjas on the bank of the Jamuna, there's no Girirajas. The Udipanas, the things which are very necessary for service to Krishna, those ecstatic instruments, they're in Braj. They're not there in Mathura. And they want to bring the best pleasure to Krishna. So that's why they don't go. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Anybody else has any?
So on the long, please go ahead. Prabhu.
I did have a question if
Yes, Prabhuji.
yeah. So the question is this. You spoke towards the end. Oh, sorry. Does Hema Jagannath Prabhu have something?
1 second. Yes, please go ahead. Ishadullah Prabhu.
So at the end, Madhavananda Prabhu, you said Jagannath Puri, there are three things present in Puri: the Aishwarya of Lakshmi Devi, the Madhurya, which we see in Mahaprabhu's Antyalila pastimes in Gambhira, and you spoke about Audarya, but did you give an example? Because I was taking notes and I missed it.
Patit Pavan Jagannath.
Oh, Patit Pavan Jagannath. Thank you.
And also Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he's known as Sarvabhauma Sodana. Bhaktivinoda gives these names to him. He's a purifier of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He's Gajapati Tarana. He's a deliverer of Gajapati Maharaj. Those are pastimes with great munificence and kindness. And Lord Jagannath himself, he's known as Patit Pavan because he comes out to see all of his devotees. Although only the high-class persons, the Deshis, can go inside. I only know a few words in Odia. Bideshi Prabeshni Shade is something that I hear too often. Foreigners not allowed inside. But Jagannath comes outside to see all of us. Hema Jagannath Prabhu has written some comment. Jai Jai Jagannath, all glories to for enlightening us. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Hema Jagannath Prabhu. I appreciate that. Anybody else with any other reflections or anything? Dina Bandhu Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
If I may ask a question,
Yes.
accept humble obeisance, all praise to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for that. I learned a lot today about Lord Jagannath. Prabhuji, my question is, Radharani and all the gopis are walking behind the cart, and Lord Jagannath is returning back. Krishna is returning back. In this case, we can look at Lord Jagannath. In one lecture, I had heard that when we pull Lord Jagannath's cart, it's like trying to draw him and bring him into our hearts. But over here with Radharani and everybody else walking behind, it's as though they're pushing Jagannath away. That's the idea I got. I don't know if that's right. So if you want to bring someone in your heart, you're pulling. So I could understand being in front of the cart, but being behind the cart, how is it they are pulling?
So here in Puri, that begins with the Rath Yatra, and the gopis are pulling the cart, and they're pulling Krishna. You come to the village of our hearts. You come to Vrindavan, the village of our hearts. And then he goes to Sundarachal, the Gundicha Mandir, and he stays there for some time. But then he has to return, just like Krishna goes to Kurukshetra, and then he has to return to Dwarka. And when he leaves, here in Puri, there's a return to Bahuda Rath. And at that time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Anugata, said that he followed behind the chariot of Lord Jagannath. In the same way that the gopis, when Akrura came to take Krishna away from Vrindavan, they were going behind saying, don't go, don't go. They were trying to stop the chariot. So in the same way, Mahaprabhu was following behind the chariot, don't go, don't go. So when they're bringing him to Vrindavan, they're pulling him. And when he's leaving Vrindavan, they're going behind, don't go, don't go. That's the mood of the gopis. Is that okay? I'm sorry I didn't clarify that more.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
We wrote, if anybody's really interested in exploring this a little further, if someone reminds me, I wrote a couple of articles about this Bahuda Rath Yatra and kind of an external understanding of it and an internal understanding. And I just covered briefly the internal understanding. There's more which can be unpacked. I could send those articles if someone likes. Let's see, there's a few hands I see up. Dina Bandhu Prabhu, my dear friend, how are you doing?
And dearest Madhavananda Prabhu, my obeisances to you. I'm so happy to see you here. Have your Sangha. Yeah, thankfully all okay here. I just wanted to ask, along the lines of what Yashoda Dulal Prabhu said about, the different moods that are present in Jagannath Puri, Aishwarya, Audarya, and Madhurya. And Lord Jagannath himself being, the term you used in the past was Radha Viraha Vidura Rup, like the embodiment of separation.
Right.
That right? And then so I was just wondering, I hope it's okay to ask, as followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in our Sampradaya, aspiring followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is there some particular way in which we are advised to relate to Lord Jagannath, or a way that we're advised to approach Lord Jagannath?
Yeah, this magazine that we wrote before, I mentioned this hidden identity of Lord Jagannath. It's kind of ironic. You see the picture, he doesn't look very hidden. He's surrounded by about 1 million people at Rath Yatra time. But it's hidden because there's so many different conceptions. And if you come to the Puri Rath Yatra, you'll see there's politicians sometimes that come from Delhi and other places, and they speak about Jagannath as a cultural symbol. And sometimes some Bollywood movie stars come. And there's politicians and people like that. And then you have some Shaivites who think that Lord Jagannath is a Shaivite deity, and you have some Shaktas, and you have some Ganapatnis, you have some devotees from the Ramanuja Sampradaya. You have so many different people who consider Jagannath in so many different ways. Even you have Christians and Muslims in Orissa who worship Jagannath, and they consider him to be a manifestation of Allah or Yahweh, like that. Amazing thing, Jagannath Puri. But what is the conception of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu toward Lord Jagannath? That is what we want to know. And his conception is Jagannath is Vrindavan Bihari Krishna. The conception which is given in the Jagannath Ashtakam, which would take us some long time, and I think Prabhuji is going to be giving some katha about that later. I won't go so much into that now. But if you study that Jagannath Ashtakam, packed up in there's so much understanding that Jagannath is Vrindavan Krishna from the very first verse. So that's our conception. When we go to a place, as we get closer, when we're far distance from a place, there's so many different doorways. If you want to come to India, you have to decide, do you want to fly through Toronto? Do you want to go through San Francisco? Do you want to fly through San Diego? Do you want to fly out of New York? Do you want to fly through Japan? Do you want to fly through, you want to arrive in Delhi? Do you want to arrive in Kolkata? And then when you arrive in some place in India, then you take a flight to Bhubaneswar. And when you come to Bhubaneswar, we're also faced with so many different choices, so many different doorways. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us that when we go to Puri, we go through the doorway of Bhubaneswar, through the particular doorway of Lingaraj. Lingaraj is a deity of Lord Shiva, who Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said is non-different from Gopishwar Mahadev, the personality who grants entrance to Vrindavan. So we go through that doorway. But then when we go through that doorway, we come into a room with another 100 doors. And which door do we go through at that time? Then we go to Satyabhamapur. Satyabhamapur is a small village just a little outside of Bhubaneswar on the old road to Puri. And that's where Rupa Goswami had a vision of Satyabhama Radha, who told him that he should make the two dramas, Lalita Madhav and Vidagdha Madhav. So then we want to go through that doorway. And so we want to go through the doorway of the conception of Rupa Goswami. Then we want to go through the doorway of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and the doorway of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, the doorway of Srila Prabhupada, the doorway of our individual Guru Janas. And those doorways are different conceptions. And that's why this Krishna Katha is very, very important. This Goswami literature is very, very important. It's not just entertaining stories or even philosophy, but it's a conception, a heartfelt conception for us to worship and do our bhajan with. Is that okay? It's a big question I'm trying to answer. Nice to see you again, my friend. Your wife is okay? Very good. We miss you guys.
Sravan Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Madhavananda Prabhuji. Dandavad Pranam.
My pranam.
So happy to see you, Prabhu.
Nice to
and
see
you
you.
literally transferred us to Jagannath Puri by the beautiful katha and the pastimes. It was really amazing how you described how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying during the Bahuda Yatra, don't go, don't go. I could literally feel that someday maybe with your blessing, with your, like along with you, we all can go and pull the chariot, and we can say same way we can say don't go, don't go. I was just meditating the same way how Jagannath, how the Pahandi starts from the temple. Like when the Rathatra actually starts, when he is going from Jagannath Puri temple to the Gundicha temple, he is in a hurry, he's very eager. That's why he literally moves forward. Like he goes as if he's falling down to the front side. And while coming back, he doesn't want to come back from the Gundicha temple. So he's go back like this. He goes, the back way he goes. So the Pandas, pull him back while coming back. So sweetly you explained that. So no doubt, Gaurang Mahaprabhu has told that don't go, don't go. So similarly, Jagannath ji, I think definitely reciprocating that way by swinging it back way. And yeah, thank you, Prabhu, for sharing so beautiful kathas. And can't wait to see you in person and host you here in New Jersey whenever you come. Please convey my obeisances to Krishna Kund Mataji also.
She's just right here next to me right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please bless us that we can try to serve Srila Prabhupada and all the Puri Basis, like your good self and your husband and all the Jagannath Puri Basis. That's our firm desire.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Let's see, who else is it? Vamsidhar Gopal Prabhu? Can you show us your smiling face?
Satyabhama Mataji also had a question.
Satyabhama, okay. Satyabhama Mataji.
Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for wonderful class. I just wanted to mention about that Leela. I relish all the pastimes of Jagannath ji, but I like that you are talking about when Devaki Mata was telling to Yashoda Maiya, and she was in her ecstatic mood, so she was not feeling. Some ladies, they have all this kind of mentality, so we should learn from that. I learned, like we should be engrossed in that Krishna's mood. If somebody is criticizing relatives or any other person is criticizing, if our mind is totally engrossed in Krishna, it doesn't matter us, like it doesn't come to us. We can overcome on that thing. So thank you so much. I really like that part.
That's a beautiful reflection.
Wonderful. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sundarachal Devi, would you like to make some comments or reflections?
Hi, Hare Krishna. I really love the class. I was just reflecting, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha. Like I couldn't listen to everything, but I was listening to some part with my mom and with my dad, and I really felt touched and transported to Jagannath Puri. And the way you described the relationship with Krishna and the gopis, and how Krishna is crying, and all of these very intimate pastimes. At one point I felt, am I even ready to listen to this? But as I listened, I felt, oh wow, Krishna is so beautiful. He loves each and every devotee so dearly, so lovingly, so intimately, and that's what really captured my heart today. So thank you very much.
But I forgot something really important. The bulls. I forgot to mention the bulls. When the bulls arrived in Kurukshetra, Krishna went, and each one of those bulls, he was embracing them. And Krishna was crying and crying, embracing those bulls. There was his old friends from Vrindavan. Thank you for reminding me of that. You're very blessed. You have such good parents. And I'm sure you're such a good daughter. You're always very nice to them, right? You never...
I'm trying.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Shodadalal Prabhu, please go ahead.
Well, thank you, Madhavananda Prabhu, for your kind words, but I was very embarrassed and couldn't respond earlier. I was beyond embarrassed. I had a question. I actually had two things. So one is I wrote in the comments, and people watching on YouTube, Madhavananda Prabhu speaks every Monday night, our Monday night, your Tuesday morning, at 9:30 p.m. I think it's your 7 a.m., right, Madhavananda Prabhu? For an hour. I think you quoted Kavichandra Goswami as saying, Kavichandra Maharaj, that you're inching your way to Kurukshetra.
Yes.
Right? In one of your classes. So it's been 58 or 57 lectures on
like
Brahma Gita. So it is, unfortunately, I've not heard every single one of them, but I've heard quite a few. And every single lecture is just packed with nectar. It's, it's a pastime which is covered in only a few verses in different shastras, and you've unpacked so much of it. So it's really amazing. So anyone who wants to catch up, you can catch up on his Facebook page. So that's one. And the other was a question I wanted to ask. You mentioned Nanda Kishore Goswami and his book. Is that available in English that we can purchase? Do you know?
It's available in Bengali. I could maybe send you a copy in Bengali, but I'd have to scan it first. It's one of the books we're working on. Very, very nice book. Maybe you've heard me speak sometimes. I've been giving a series of classes about Guru Tattva, and probably will be telling a story of Bandhu sometimes. Have you ever heard me tell the story of Bandhu? That's one of his disciples. And because of Bandhu, his disciple, Bandhu in Hindi, if you correct my pronunciation, someone please, but Bandhu means someone who's like a fool or an idiot. And he was a disciple who wasn't so high class, didn't know so much Sanskrit, but he was a great devotee. And because of him, it's a long story, his Guru Maharaj got to have darshan of Krishna. And he wrote this book, Vrindavan Lilamrita, because of a very beautiful book. While you're mentioning all these sweet things, I can also mention that if anybody's interested, on Facebook we have something called GORA, the Gaudiya Odia Research Association, and if anybody's interested in taking part in that in any different way, we're trying to translate different books. We have a few different books we're working on right now. There's a Gauranga Bhagavat by Bhagavan Das, which is being translated from Oriya, very rare pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We're also translating the songs of written by Ramananda Roy, very rare songs practically nobody knows about. And we'll be posting some different things on that Facebook page if anybody's interested in that. Okay. Thank you, Yashoda Dulal Prabhu. I really appreciate it. I'm very touched that you're here tonight. Yashoda Dulal Prabhu, you're a very important person. I know you're always doing so many things, and somehow you're here for us.
Small person, but thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else have any other reflections, anything they want to share? None in charge. Or Jagannath Prabhu is saying something?
I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts, and thousands of pranam to your lotus feet for enlightening us. I just wanted to show some of the books we have of Krishna Kathamrita Bindu series. You all can refer if you are looking for. And this is the book Prabhuji was mentioning. So we have the entire Krishna Kathamrita Bindu series with us. So if anybody needs to borrow, please don't hesitate. They are wonderfully written and wonderfully quoted. And thank you so much for creating these masterpieces.
Thank you, Hema Jagannath Prabhu. Jai Hema Jagannath, you know, I feel like you're my father in one sense because you're really a Dambasi. You're from this part of the world, and you please bless me that I can do this service for Prabhupada and the devotees. I'll be very, because this really belongs to you.
Thank you so much, Madhavananda Prabhu. Special blessings. So before we conclude, also I wanted to share some announcements. So please stay tuned. Let me see if I can share my screen. Can you see my screen?
It's Rath Yatra, New York.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
It's a demon with Gorgovinda Maharaj.
Really? This is when, Prabhuji? This is what year?
Oh, that would have been probably 1994, 95 here in Bhubaneswar. And the best part of my life.
Beautiful picture I found online and I wanted to share with all of our audience. That's our dear Madhavananda Prabhu's very intimate disciples of His Holiness Gaurav Swami Maharaj. All glories to Maharaj and Madhavananda Prabhu. And this particular broadcast was sponsored, and many of our wonderful devotees we saw. Yashoda Prabhu and devotees from Gita Nagari, devotees from Richmond, they connected. So these particular temples and centers, they sponsored Bhakti Center, in the Brooklyn Temple, New Jersey, Nagari, Richmond, Delaware, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. And next Sunday, same time, 9 a.m., our dear Amrinder Prabhu will share Jagannath Puri pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from Ante Leela. Today we heard from Madhya Leela. So please connect at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. India time is 6:30 p.m. And then following that, July 4th, Sunday is Gaurang Prabhu from Radha Gopinath Temple and Govardhan Eco Village. He will share the glories of Jagannath Ashtakam. And then July 11th, His Holiness Bhakti Purushottam Swami Maharaj from Shri Mayapur Dham. Maharaj will share glories of Lord Jagannath Prasadam. And July 8th, which still him and Jagannath Prabhu is keeping it confidential to be announced. So we thank all of you. We thank His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu for connecting, blessings, sharing the deeper meaning of Ratha Yatra. Such blessings to have you on our broadcast, Prabhu. Such a scholarly wisdom that you bring, and the writings, and it's just, I remember when I received that Krishna Kathamrita magazine, you explained properly the position of Lord Shiva. I was just mesmerized. I read it so many times many years ago, but it helped me so much to understand the positions of Mahadev. So thank you so much for all your blessings. Such heart-touching. And I again agree with Yashoda Prabhu's fingernails. I also need, so I'm going to visit his home one of these days. He's not inviting me, but I'll barge in.
Oh, please stop.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Devakinandan Prabhu. You know, when I see all the devotees and what you're doing in such an amazing way, they're on the East Coast and they're in America, such a difficult place. I feel so useless and so very, very tiny and small. I thank you all. You're all doing so many wonderful things. Yashoda Dulal Prabhu, Devakananda Prabhu, Hema Jagannath, Nina Bandhu Prabhu, all the devotees there. Thank you all so much.
We're waiting for your Vapu association so we can hear face to face wonderful songs and bhajans and how you, it's like an orchestra for our eyes, ears. So nice. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Hema Jagannath Prabhu, anything? Krishna Namnam Prabhu, any announcements?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Thank you, Prabhu. First of all, we would like to offer our respectful obeisances to you, Prabhu, and all the devotees. So, Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Today evening from Central New Jersey, we have His Holiness J. Advaita Swami Maharaj is speaking at 6:30 p.m. Please try to join if you can. We'll try to set up also Zoom. Then June 24th is Lord Jagannath Snan Yatra, very, very important day, as Prabhu has given already the essence of it. Please try to join us 7 to 9 p.m. at our temple. I'm sure all other centers are also doing ISKCON. So June 24th, please try to join. In Jagannath Puri, it is mentioned generally it is done in the morning time, but according to our convenience, devotees' convenience, we do in the evening. So on June 22nd, 21st, tomorrow, Monday is Pandav Nirjala Ekadasi, full fasting if you have broken, especially previous Ekadasis. So, and then the Tuesday is Pani Hati Chida Dahi festival, which is very famous as well. Raghunath Das Goswami's special festival, Danda Mahotsav. Lord Nityananda Prabhu is giving so much mercy to him and to all of us. So we can sincerely pray to Raghunath Das Goswami and Lord Nityananda Prabhu to get some drops of mercy from them. Then, today, as I mentioned before, Baladev Vidyabhushan Disappearance Day, and Gangamath Goswami's Appearance Day, and Day of Worship of Mother Ganga. Without Baladev Vidyabhushan, today we will not have Govinda Bhashya and his wonderful commentary on Bhagavad Gita. So, Prabhupada refers to Baladev Vidyabhushan and many of his purports and translations. So those are the quick announcements. And also Atlantic City Radhayatra coming up. July 17th, Saturday is Atlantic City Radhayatra from our Central New Jersey. We humbly request all the devotees from other centers as well to join us if you can. And the actual day Radhayatra is July 11th. We are still trying to get a permit to do in Oak Tree Road in Edison, if you can. If not, it will be happening at our center, at our temple. Thank you, Madhavananda Prabhu. Please join us. It's been, I think, at least 3-4 years, I think, physically when you were here last time discussing with Mataji as well. So please come whenever you can.
On the Snan Yatra day in 2018 or 2019, Prabhu. Sorry.
Yeah. We hope to see you. Thank you, everyone, for attending this Katha, wonderful Katha. Devakananda Prabhu, conclude.
We thank all of you and thank Madhavananda Prabhu, Jashoda Lal Prabhu, our devotees from Gita Nagari, Richmond, for connecting and blessing us with your darshans and hearing attentively the inner meanings of Rath Yatra. Very pleasing. I'll say one thing. Rath Yatra was one of the best Rath Yatra actually this week ago when we went. I felt some very special vibrations, maybe because of COVID. Devotees surrendered, Jagannath and Kirtans, and it was very ecstatic and electrifying, touching to the heart. So we're hoping all of you bless us in our Atlantic City Rath Yatra on July 17. Because there are hundreds and hundreds of Westerns come on the boardwalk of Atlantic City where we conduct Rath Yatra. So it's a great opportunity to have all these Westerns, and they're in good mood. They're there. They're not in a hurry to go anywhere. So they want to talk. They have questions about Jagannath, what we're doing. So please bless us and mark your calendar. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Madhavananda Prabhu ji ki jai. His Holiness Gorgon Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Yes.